Now, you probably know that one of the things that I'm disappointed about is the failure to get the ambulance fee. And many people have looked at this, and it's been one of these issues that have been quite confusing to many people. It's an easy issue to demagogue because all you have to do is say the ambulance is not going to pick you up, or that it's going to cost you X amount of money. You could say that in 5 seconds, but it then takes you 5, 10, 15 minutes to explain the nuances of what happens, to explain to you the cost factors, and to go through that step by step before people actually get it. And to try to debate that in a hotly contested contest where there are lots of rumors going on places this at a very, very strong disadvantage. There were so many people that I met at the polls that were quite confused. Even people who wanted to vote and support the position that we had was confused. Well, if I'm in favor of it and I like it, should I vote against what they want to do, or do I vote for it? And it's just one of those issues that just simply you can't get your hands on it right away. But the important part of this are the revenue impacts. Now, some have said, well, you've sent over, or you forwarded to the council, a very difficult budget reduction measure to close that gap. Why did you do that? Well, it's quite simple. We already have the $14 million in the budget. So this is not money we were expecting to have. This is revenue that are already in the budget based on the ambulance fee being a part of it. That's what the county voted for last spring. Now, we've anticipated that not some distant time in the future, right now, there are $14 million that we anticipated to receive from the ambulance fee right now. That is not happening. So we have to do one of two things. We either have to cut other places to make up for the loss of the $14 million that we do not have, or we need additional revenue, i.e. taxes or something, to fill that. And people have said, oh, you are frightening people, you're throwing out a scare tactic, you don't have to say anything about this. Well, no, it's $14 million that's no longer there. That's a reality. Others have said, well, why don't you cut it this way? Well, I've said to the council and others, if you have a different way in which you want to make the cuts, please say so. And if you notice, no one has done so. They keep saying, well, let's move the target back. Let's wait until after new revenues. Let's wait until next year. Let's wait, whatever. The problem with that is that the longer you wait, the more difficult the challenge becomes. Because if you want to get savings, or you want to get savings, you need to start earlier. And each year that I've been here, we've had a savings plan to show up the differences of what we see as potential gap. Now, the problem is really much worse than what I've said, because there are $14 million in the current budget that are no longer there. And then the budget that we are proposing, the FY12 budget, there's $14 million in that we have to now calculate or find ways in which to recalibrate that. So it's really a $28 million hit. And so people have said, well, it's unnecessary on this, that, and the other, and we're going to get additional revenues that are going to come in maybe, and that way we can offset that. There is no level of revenues, there's no level of estimates that you're going to get that can cover a $28 million shortfall on top of a $145 million shortfall that we're already suffering. And so we need to stop posturing and realize the impact of what we face is that there's, between these two budgets, the current and the budget that we're now about to propose, $28 million gap on top of the $145 that we announced several weeks ago. That's a reality. And so the thing that you need to ask for those people who say we don't have to do it, well, how are you going to make up the difference? What are you going to do to make up the difference? The $14 million now and the $14 million anticipated next year. That number, $14 to $17 million, is a number that continues each and every year. That's gone. And it was projected in our budgets going forward. And so that's a problem. And so what we will do between now and December is send over, as we've done in every year, a updated savings plan that will do the following. It would say, okay, we start with a challenge of 145, which is the working deficit that we had before. We have the $28 million now that has been added to that. And we will look at the revenues over the next couple of weeks and figure out as best we can what that precise adjustment will be. And we will have all of that available, and we'll send a savings plan over that, in my opinion, will actually even further cuts in December. And at that point in time, we have to make a decision. We pledged our financial stability based on having a balanced budget. We've said to Wall Street that we're going to continue to have a balanced budget. We've said to Wall Street that we're going to have a certain level of reserves. And we want to make sure that we have that. And we have to come up with answers in order to resolve that. That's very important, because you hear information about it's just a scare tactic. It's just not real. That's real. The problem is that people do not want to deal with the reality of what we face. And we need to get to that and deal with that as effectively as possible.